Ralf Schumacher grew up in a family where the values of hard work, resourcefulness, and perseverance were deeply embedded. Born on June 30, 1975, in Herth, Germany, Ralf was the younger of two brothers, the second son of Ralf and Elisabeth Schumacher. The Schumacher family lived humbly, with Ralf working as a bricklayer and later managing a small go-kart track, while Elisabeth ran the day-to-day operations of the track and provided emotional support for their sons. Though their life was modest, the family's involvement in motorsport, starting with go-karting, would come to define both Ralf and Michael's future. Ralf's introduction to racing was almost inevitable, growing up in the shadow of his older brother Michael, who had already begun making waves in karting by the time Ralf was old enough to sit behind the wheel. Their father Ralf was the key to both brothers' early exposure to motorsport. While the family lacked financial resources, Ralf's ingenuity allowed the boys to get involved in karting. He frequently assembled and repaired karts using spare parts, ensuring that Ralf, like Michael before him, had access to the basic tools needed to develop his racing skills. The family's go-kart track, located near their home, became a focal point for Ralf's early life, a place where the foundations of his future career were laid. Being the younger sibling in a family with a rising star like Michael Schumacher undoubtedly influenced Ralf's development. From a young age, Ralf watched his brother's growing success in karting and eventually in Formula One. The family's focus on Michael's burgeoning career meant that Ralf's own early forays into racing often played out under the weight of comparison. However, instead of feeling overshadowed, Ralf was inspired by his brother's achievements. Michael's success provided a roadmap, showing Ralf what was possible, but it also set a high bar for him to reach. The Schumacher family was tightly knit, and while there was competition between the brothers, there was also mutual respect. Michael's progress motivated Ralf to follow in his footsteps, but it also created a dynamic where Ralf needed to prove that he was not just Michael's younger brother, but a talented racer in his own right. Despite the natural rivalry that came with being two brothers in the same sport, there was no bitterness between them. Ralf was fiercely determined to carve out his own identity in motorsport, but he also looked up to Michael, who often provided advice and guidance, especially in the early stages of Ralf's career. This sibling bond was rooted in the values their parents instilled in them. Ralf and Elisabeth never played favorites and supported both sons equally. Their upbringing emphasized effort and perseverance, teaching both Michael and Ralf that success came not just from natural talent, but from relentless hard work. Ralf's journey in motorsport began on the same go-kart track where Michael had started. He displayed a natural ability from a young age, impressing those around him with his focus and competitive spirit. But while Michael's trajectory was meteoric, Ralf's path was more measured. He had to fight harder for recognition, often battling the perception that he was simply following in his brother's footsteps. Yet, this environment of high expectations and family support helped Ralf develop an inner toughness that would later serve him well in the high-pressure world of Formula One. At home, the Schumacher family shared an unspoken understanding of the sacrifices needed to succeed in motorsport. Ralf and Elisabeth had already seen the demanding nature of the racing world through Michael's early rise, and they approached Ralf's career with the same level of dedication and support. Financial constraints were always a reality, but the Schumachers were resourceful, making the most of what they had. Ralf grew up knowing that every race, every opportunity, was precious. As Ralf matured, the influence of his family continued to shape him, not just as a driver but as a person. The discipline and resilience that came from his parents' example were ingrained in his character. He learned early on that success would not come easily or without setbacks. Unlike Michael, who seemed destined for greatness from the start, Ralf had to fight for his place in the motorsport world. Yet, this challenge only deepened his resolve. Ralf's relationship with his brother, though marked by inevitable comparisons, remained one of mutual respect. Michael's presence cast a long shadow, but it was one that Ralf used as motivation, never letting it define or diminish his own aspirations. Ultimately, Ralf's family environment was one that balanced both competition and support, shaping him into a determined, resilient, and skilled driver. His parents' unwavering belief in hard work and his brother's trailblazing career both guided and pushed Ralf to forge his own path. The Schumacher name carried immense weight, but Ralf was determined to prove that his journey was uniquely his own, built on the same foundation of grit and dedication that defined his family's legacy in motorsport. Ralf Schumacher's early years in Herth, Germany, were steeped in motorsport from the beginning. Growing up in a household where racing was a central theme, it was no surprise that Ralf developed a passion for the sport at a young age. The family's go-kart track, operated by his mother, Elizabeth, and often maintained by his father, Ralf, became a playground for both Ralf and his older brother, Michael. The hum of engines and the smell of fuel were a constant presence in their lives, and it was here, surrounded by the energy of the track, that Ralf first began to cultivate his love for racing. Ralf's interest in motorsport emerged naturally, inspired by the early success of his brother, Michael. By the time Ralf was old enough to race, Michael was already making a name for himself in karting, and the young Ralf was eager to follow in his brother's footsteps. But while Michael's journey into karting had been more of an exploration at first, Ralf seemed to possess an inherent understanding of racing from the very start. Watching Michael's meteoric rise gave Ralf a sense of direction, providing him with a clear goal to not only compete but to succeed in the world of motorsport. Ralf first climbed into a go-kart at around 3 years old, his small hands barely able to grip the wheel. Like Michael before him, Ralf's father had cobbled together a makeshift cart using spare parts, giving his youngest son a chance to experience the thrill of racing firsthand. Unlike many children who might have treated karting as a casual hobby, Ralf displayed a seriousness and focus that belied his age. He was determined to master the art of driving, and even in those early days, he showed flashes of the competitive spirit that would later define his career. As Ralf progressed into more structured karting competitions, the differences between his and Michael's early experiences began to emerge. While Michael had been something of a trailblazer for the family, discovering racing as he went along, Ralf had the benefit of observing his brother's successes and failures. This gave him an advantage in terms of preparation and understanding what was required to compete at the highest level. However, it also created an additional layer of pressure. Every race, every lap was measured against the towering achievements of Michael, who had already become a dominant force in the junior racing world. Despite this pressure, Ralf embraced karting with an intensity all his own. His early experiences mirrored Michael's in terms of the technical challenges he faced and the financial limitations that came with racing on a modest budget. The Schumacher family still lacked the resources of wealthier competitors, and Ralf, like Michael, often raced with equipment that was far from cutting edge. Yet, just as his brother had done, Ralf made the most of what he had, relying on his natural talent and the hands-on support of his father, who worked tirelessly to keep the family's karts competitive. One key moment in Ralf's early karting career came when he won his first race at the age of 9. The victory was not just a personal triumph, it was a signal to those around him that he was more than just Michael Schumacher's little brother. Ralf was beginning to carve out his own identity in the sport, and this win marked the first step in a journey that would eventually lead him to Formula One. Unlike Michael, whose rise through the karting ranks had been swift, Ralf's progress was more measured, marked by steady improvement rather than instant domination. Throughout his early years, Ralf often found himself competing against older and more experienced drivers, a challenge that pushed him to develop his skills at a rapid pace. Karting taught him not only how to be fast, but how to race smart. He learned the importance of strategy, patience, and timing, skills that would later prove invaluable in his professional career. Racing against tougher competition also toughened his mental approach. He knew he would always face comparisons to Michael, but Ralf was determined to create his own path, using the challenges he faced as fuel for his ambitions. Ralf's karting career began to accelerate in the late 1980s as he moved into more prestigious competitions. His breakthrough came when he competed in the German Junior Karting Championship, a highly competitive series that served as a proving ground for young drivers with professional aspirations. Ralf excelled, displaying a level of precision and control that made him stand out. His performances in these junior karting championships drew the attention of talent scouts and team managers, much as they had for Michael a few years earlier. Despite his growing success, Ralf's path was not without obstacles. One of the main challenges he faced was escaping the shadow of his brother's burgeoning career. By the early 1990s, Michael Schumacher had broken into Formula One, quickly becoming one of the sport's brightest stars. The Schumacher name was already synonymous with racing excellence, and Ralf found himself constantly compared to Michael's achievements. While this could have been a burden, Ralf used it as motivation. He was determined to prove that he belonged in motorsport not because of his last name, but because of his own abilities. Another pivotal moment in Ralf's early racing years came when he transitioned from karting to single-seater racing. This shift was critical for any young driver aspiring to reach Formula One, and Ralf embraced the challenge. He moved into the Formula Junior categories, where he continued to hone his craft, gaining valuable experience and learning how to handle more powerful machines. His performances in these junior series, particularly in Formula 3, confirmed that Ralf had the potential to reach the highest levels of motorsport. By the time Ralf Schumacher began to climb the ladder toward Formula One, he had already built a reputation as a driver with immense potential. His early years in Hearth, marked by countless hours spent at the family kart track and the constant pursuit of improvement, had prepared him for the intense world of professional racing. Ralf's early karting experiences, while similar to Michael's in many ways, had set him on a distinct path, one where he would fight to establish his own name in the sport and emerge from the shadow of his legendary brother. These formative years, full of passion, dedication, and a relentless desire to compete, were the bedrock of Ralf's career. Though comparisons to Michael would always follow him, Ralf's early successes proved that he was not just following in his brother's footsteps, but blazing his own trail in the world of motorsport. Ralf Schumacher's career and life were deeply intertwined with key relationships, particularly the bond he shared with his older brother Michael and the significant rivalries that shaped his time in Formula One. Being the younger sibling of the most successful Formula One driver in history brought both opportunities and challenges, and Ralf's journey was often influenced by this unique dynamic. Beyond his brother, Ralf's relationships with teammates and competitors also played a pivotal role in shaping his career, as moments of conflict, rivalry, and personal drama both motivated and challenged him. Ralf's bond with Michael Schumacher was one of admiration, respect, and, at times, rivalry. Growing up, Ralf had watched as Michael blazed a trail through karting and junior motorsport categories, setting a standard that Ralf both aspired to and found daunting. Michael's success had created a blueprint for Ralf, and their shared passion for racing united them in a way that few siblings experience. In the early stages of his career, Ralf often leaned on Michael for guidance. Michael's experience and insight into the brutal world of professional motorsport were invaluable, and he was willing to offer his younger brother advice on everything from racecraft to managing team dynamics. However, as Ralf began to ascend into Formula One, the brothers' relationship naturally evolved into one of competition. Ralf was no longer just Michael's younger brother, he was now a direct competitor. Although Ralf was careful never to publicly frame his career as a quest to step out of Michael's shadow, the comparisons were inescapable. The media constantly highlighted the rivalry between the two brothers, sometimes exaggerating the competitive tension. On the track, their battles were real, and Ralf was fiercely determined to prove that he could stand toe-to-toe with his legendary brother. Their sibling rivalry came to a head during the 2001 Formula One season when, at the Canadian Grand Prix, Ralf beat Michael to claim his first career victory. It was a symbolic moment, not just for Ralf but for their dynamic. Ralf had proven to himself, his brother, and the world that he could win on his own terms. Despite these competitive moments, there was never any deep-seated animosity between the brothers. Both Michael and Ralf respected each other's talents, and their battles on the track were defined by professionalism rather than personal bitterness. However, the constant pressure of being compared to Michael undoubtedly weighed on Ralf throughout his career. While Michael seemed destined for greatness from the start, Ralf had to continually fight for recognition, and this fight shaped much of his mindset and approach to racing. Beyond the relationship with his brother, Ralf had significant rivalries within Formula One, most notably with his teammates and other leading drivers of the era. His time at Williams, where he raced alongside Juan Pablo Montoya from 2001 to 2004, was one of the most intense periods of his career. Montoya, a fiery and aggressive driver, was a formidable teammate, and the internal competition between the two was often fraught with tension. Both Ralf and Montoya were ambitious and hungry for success, and their rivalry within the team was evident on and off the track. While they respected each other's abilities, their differing driving styles and personalities often led to friction. Montoya's fearless overtaking style contrasted with Ralf's more methodical, calculated approach, and these differences sometimes boiled over into conflict, particularly when their battle for supremacy within the Williams team intensified. This rivalry reached its peak during the 2003 season, when both drivers were in contention for the championship. The internal battle was fierce, and at times, it seemed as though they were fighting each other as much as they were fighting their rivals from other teams. While both drivers secured race wins, the tension within the team affected the overall dynamic, with Williams often forced to manage the delicate balance between their two competitive stars. The rivalry with Montoya pushed Ralf to perform at a higher level, but it also created stress and pressure that sometimes hindered the team's cohesion. Ultimately, neither driver could secure the championship, with both falling short to Michael and Ferrari, who were in their period of dominance. Off the track, Ralf's personal life was often scrutinized by the media, particularly during the height of his career. His marriage to Cora Caroline Brinkman in 2001, a glamorous affair attended by many in the Formula One world, became a focal point for tabloid attention. Cora, a model and media personality, was often in the spotlight, and the couple's relationship was frequently the subject of public interest. While they presented a united front, the pressure of life in the public eye took its toll on their marriage, leading to their eventual separation and divorce in 2015. Despite these challenges, Ralf remained a devoted father to their son, David, who also began pursuing a career in motorsport, following in the footsteps of his father and uncle. Another significant relationship that shaped Ralf's career was with his teams, particularly Williams and Toyota. Ralf's move to Williams in 1999 was seen as the step that would take him out of Michael's shadow and into the spotlight as a contender in his own right. His time with Williams was a period of both success and frustration. While he secured multiple victories and podium finishes, the team struggled to consistently challenge Ferrari's dominance. Ralf's professional relationships with the engineers and team principals at Williams were strong, but the inherent pressure of being part of one of Formula One's most storied teams was ever present. He often felt the weight of expectation, not only to compete but to deliver championship-level performances. In 2005, Ralf made the high-profile switch to Toyota, a team with enormous financial backing but limited on-track success. His decision to join Toyota was seen as a bold move, and Ralf hoped to lead the team to new heights. However, his time at Toyota was marked by inconsistency and frustration. The team struggled to develop a competitive car, and despite moments of promise, Ralf's tenure with Toyota failed to produce the results he had hoped for. His relationships with the team were tested as frustrations mounted over the car's performance, and Ralf found himself grappling with the reality of a career that, while successful, had not reached the same heights as his brothers. Throughout his career, Ralf's rivalries and relationships played a defining role in shaping his path. Whether it was the healthy sibling rivalry with Michael, the fierce competition with teammates like Montoya, or the personal challenges he faced off the track, these experiences molded Ralf into a determined and resilient driver. His ability to navigate the pressures of living in his brother's shadow, manage intense internal team battles, and handle personal conflicts spoke to his character and professionalism. In the end, Ralf Schumacher's career was not just about wins and losses, it was about his ability to forge his own identity in a sport where he was constantly compared to the greatest driver of all time. His relationships and rivalries, though sometimes challenging, pushed him to grow as a driver and as a person, ensuring that while he may have raced in the shadow of a legend, he created a legacy all his own. Ralf Schumacher's breakthrough into Formula One was marked by a combination of talent, determination, and the constant challenge of stepping out from the shadow of his older brother, Michael. From his early years in karting to his first appearances in the highest tier of motorsport, Ralf was always aware that his journey would be scrutinized under the lens of comparison. Despite this, he forged his own path and built a reputation distinct from his brothers, thanks to a series of pivotal races, influential mentors, and key moments that brought him into the spotlight. Ralf's ascent to Formula One began in the early 1990s as he worked his way up through the junior categories. His talent was evident during his time in the Formula 3 series, where he competed against future F1 drivers like Alexander Wurz. In 1996, Ralf made a bold move to the Japanese Formula Nippon series, now known as Super Formula, where he quickly made a name for himself. Despite being in unfamiliar territory, Ralf adapted quickly and secured a number of impressive results, including winning the championship in 1996. His success in Japan, far from the European spotlight, showcased his ability to succeed on his own terms and proved that he had the talent to compete on the international stage. Ralf's performances in Japan, combined with his earlier successes in Formula 3, caught the attention of Formula One team owners, and by 1997 he was signed by Jordan Grand Prix, making his debut in Formula One that year. At the time, Jordan was a mid-tier team, known for nurturing young talent, and its charismatic owner, Eddie Jordan, saw potential in Ralf. This opportunity with Jordan was pivotal for Ralf. While he wasn't expected to challenge for wins immediately, he was given the platform to learn, develop, and prove that he belonged in Formula One. Ralf's rookie season in 1997 was a baptism by fire. While the Jordan car wasn't competitive enough to fight for podiums regularly, Ralf showed flashes of brilliance that earned him recognition. One of the key moments that brought him into the spotlight came at the 1997 Argentine Grand Prix, where Ralf found himself in contention for a podium finish. His aggressive driving and determination impressed many, but the race ended in disappointment when he collided with his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella while fighting for second place. The incident, though unfortunate, was a sign of Ralf's ambition and willingness to take risks, traits that would define his career. Despite the crash, Ralf had shown that he was a driver to watch. Throughout the 1997 season, he continued to produce strong performances, and his aggressive yet controlled driving style began to earn him respect within the paddock. By the end of his debut season, Ralf had already established himself as more than just Michael Schumacher's brother. His natural racing instincts, particularly in difficult conditions, set him apart, and his ability to extract maximum performance from the Jordan car proved that he had the potential to succeed at the highest level. In 1998, Ralf's relationship with Jordan continued to develop, and he secured his first podium finish at the Belgian Grand Prix, finishing second in a chaotic race marked by torrential rain and multiple crashes. The race was a turning point for Ralf, as it was a demonstration of his skill in challenging conditions, a trait his brother Michael was also famous for. The podium finish at Spa-Francorchamps, a track where his brother had enjoyed so much success, was significant in solidifying Ralf's place in Formula One. This performance, in one of the most prestigious races of the season, drew widespread praise and showed that Ralf was ready to compete at the top level. However, despite these successes, Ralf continued to face the challenge of stepping out of Michael's shadow. The media was relentless in comparing the two, and while Ralf was proving himself on track, he still had to deal with the constant pressure of being measured against his brother's record-breaking achievements. While Michael had already established himself as a multiple-time world champion with Ferrari, Ralf was fighting for recognition in a competitive but mid-tier team. This dynamic would remain a central theme throughout his career, but rather than letting it define him, Ralf focused on his own journey. In 1999, Ralf made a critical career move by signing with the Williams team, one of Formula One's most storied constructors. Williams had a rich history of success, and the team's technical expertise offered Ralf a chance to compete for victories. This move represented a significant step up from Jordan and was a clear signal that Ralf was determined to compete at the highest level, independent of his brother's legacy. Under the guidance of team principal Frank Williams and technical director Patrick Head, Ralf continued to develop as a driver. Williams provided Ralf with a car that was increasingly competitive, allowing him to showcase his true potential. The 1999 season marked a turning point in Ralf's career, as he scored 3 podium finishes and established himself as a consistent frontrunner. His ability to push the Williams car to its limits, combined with his growing experience, allowed him to stand out in a highly competitive field. By now, Ralf had earned the respect of his peers and the recognition that he was more than just a driver with a famous last name. He was a serious contender in his own right. Ralf's breakthrough came in 2001 when he secured his first Formula One victory at the San Marino Grand Prix. Driving a Williams powered by a strong BMW engine, Ralf delivered a flawless performance, dominating the race from start to finish. The win was a monumental moment in his career, not only because it was his first victory, but also because it symbolized his emergence as a top-tier driver. Ralf had finally achieved what he had been striving for since his entry into Formula One. He had stepped out of his brother's shadow and proved that he could win at the highest level. The 2001 season continued to be a success for Ralf, as he went on to win 2 more races, including a memorable victory at the Canadian Grand Prix, where he beat his brother Michael to the checkered flag. The win in Canada was particularly significant, as it was the first time in Formula One history that 2 brothers had finished first and second in a race, with Ralf coming out on top. This victory was a defining moment, not just for Ralf's career but for the Schumacher family, and it further solidified Ralf's place as a legitimate Formula One contender. Ralf's success with Williams continued over the next few seasons, with multiple victories and podium finishes. His relationship with the team, particularly with BMW, was strong, and he was seen as one of the leading drivers in the sport. However, the challenge of competing for a world championship remained elusive. Williams, while competitive, struggled to match the dominance of Ferrari, and Ralf, despite his talent, was often in the shadow of his brother's relentless success. Still, Ralf's reputation as a consistent and highly skilled driver was well established. Throughout his career, Ralf faced numerous challenges, from the weight of family expectations to the internal battles within his teams, but he always remained determined to forge his own identity. His breakthrough into Formula One, marked by key victories and strong performances, was a testament to his talent and resilience. Although he never reached the same heights as Michael, Ralf carved out a successful career in one of the most competitive eras of the sport, earning his place among the top drivers of his time. Ralf Schumacher's Formula One career was filled with both impressive victories and frustrating setbacks, mirroring the volatile nature of the sport itself. Though he was a highly skilled driver with a number of significant achievements, Ralf's career was often overshadowed by the dominance of his brother Michael, the relentless pressure to succeed, and a series of injuries and team changes that shaped his trajectory in the sport. Through these highs and lows, Ralf showcased resilience, determination, and a desire to carve out his own legacy, separate from the towering achievements of his sibling. Ralf Schumacher's career was marked by a handful of standout victories that showcased his undeniable talent and ability to perform at the highest level of motorsport. His first major breakthrough came in 2001 at the San Marino Grand Prix, where he took his maiden Formula One victory driving for Williams. It was a dominant performance that saw him lead the race from start to finish, a defining moment that silenced critics who questioned whether he could win on his own merit or whether he would forever be overshadowed by Michael. The victory was a deeply personal triumph for Ralf, finally putting him in the spotlight as a race winner. The same season, Ralf secured another historic victory at the Canadian Grand Prix, beating his brother Michael in a straight fight for the win. It was the first time in Formula One history that 2 brothers finished first and second in a race, with Ralf coming out on top. This win was not only significant for its historical importance, but also because it symbolized Ralf stepping out of his brother's immense shadow. For Ralf, the win in Canada was a deeply emotional and proud moment, showing the world that he could beat his brother on equal terms. Ralf's best season came in 2003, when he won twice more, first at the European Grand Prix at Nürburgring and then at the French Grand Prix. In both races, Ralf exhibited his calm, controlled driving style and ability to take advantage of a competitive car. The 2003 season saw Williams and BMW provide him with a car that could fight at the front, and Ralf's consistency helped him finish 5th in the championship, despite being in the title fight for much of the year. His victories were important not just for his own career but also for Williams, who were attempting to challenge Ferrari's dominance. Despite his moments of brilliance, Ralf's Formula One career was also punctuated by several frustrating setbacks. One of the most difficult aspects of Ralf's journey was the constant comparison to his brother Michael. No matter how well he performed, he was often unfairly measured against Michael's record-breaking success. This pressure weighed heavily on Ralf, particularly during seasons when his form dipped or his car wasn't competitive. Even when he secured victories, the media often framed them in the context of how they compared to his brother's achievements, which made it difficult for Ralf to fully escape his brother's shadow. In addition to the constant scrutiny, Ralf faced significant challenges with injuries that interrupted the momentum of his career. One of the most notable low points came during the 2003 season, when, despite a strong start and multiple wins, Ralf's title challenge faded due to a combination of bad luck, car issues, and crashes. A particularly harsh blow came during the Hungarian Grand Prix, where he struggled with tire issues, eventually leading to a loss of form and slipping out of title contention. The pressure of competing for a championship, while still fighting off comparisons to his brother, was immense, and the season's downturn felt like a missed opportunity for Ralf to emerge as a serious title contender. The real turning point in Ralf's career came in 2004, when he suffered a major crash at the United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis. Ralf's car hit the wall at high speed, causing severe spinal injuries that forced him out of action for several months. The crash was a traumatic event, both physically and mentally. His recovery took longer than expected, and when he returned, it was clear that the accident had taken a toll on him. The injuries not only disrupted his season, but also seemed to sap some of his confidence and aggressiveness on track. While Ralf made a full physical recovery, he was never quite the same driver after the crash, and his form became more inconsistent. The aftermath of the injury coincided with a period of frustration at Williams. The team, once a dominant force in Formula One, struggled to provide a competitive car, and tensions grew between Ralf and team management. By the end of 2004, it was clear that Ralf needed a change, and he made the decision to leave Williams and join Toyota for the 2005 season. This move was seen as a bold one, as Toyota had yet to establish themselves as a front-running team, but they had the financial resources and ambition to become competitive. However, Ralf's time at Toyota would prove to be one of the most frustrating chapters of his career. Despite high expectations and occasional flashes of promise, the team never managed to deliver a car capable of challenging for wins or podiums consistently. Ralf struggled with the car's performance and reliability issues, and by 2006, it became clear that Toyota's lofty ambitions were not translating into results on the track. His frustrations mounted as he found himself battling in the midfield, far from the podium finishes he had once enjoyed with Williams. The 2007 season, Ralf's final year in Formula One, was particularly difficult. Toyota's performance continued to disappoint, and Ralf himself struggled to extract the best from the car. His relationship with the team became strained, and at the end of the season, both parties mutually agreed to part ways. After more than a decade in Formula One, Ralf decided to step away from the sport, feeling that his chances of returning to the front of the grid were slim. Throughout his career, Ralf coped with the immense pressure of expectations in a pragmatic way. He was never as publicly emotional or combative as some of his rivals, often preferring to let his results do the talking. However, it was clear that the weight of constantly being compared to his brother took its toll. While Ralf remained close to Michael throughout his career, the endless comparisons from the media and fans created a burden that Ralf carried for much of his time in Formula One. After his crash in 2004, Ralf's approach to the sport also seemed to change. The physical pain of the injuries, combined with the emotional frustration of underperforming, led him to reflect on his priorities. While he remained competitive, there was a sense that the crash had shaken his confidence and perhaps tempered his desire to take the kinds of risks that had once brought him success. Despite these challenges, Ralf's ability to handle disappointment was admirable. He maintained a professional demeanor even when things didn't go his way, and he continued to push himself to perform, even in less competitive machinery. His move to Toyota was driven by optimism and a desire for a fresh start, but when it didn't work out, Ralf accepted that his time in Formula One had come to an end and transitioned smoothly out of the sport. In the end, Ralf Schumacher's Formula One career was a mix of highs and lows, marked by significant victories and periods of frustration. He faced immense pressure, not just from the comparison to Michael, but from the expectations that came with racing for top teams like Williams and Toyota. Injuries and team struggles often disrupted his momentum, but Ralf's resilience and determination allowed him to persevere. While Ralf may not have reached the heights of his brother's legendary career, he carved out his own legacy in Formula One, winning 6 Grands Prix and consistently proving himself as a highly skilled and capable driver. His journey through the sport, filled with personal challenges and professional triumphs, serves as a testament to his talent, determination, and the unique pressures of living in the shadow of a legend. Ralf Schumacher's greatest achievement in motorsport is undoubtedly his first Formula One victory at the 2001 San Marino Grand Prix. This race marked a turning point in his career, not only because it was his maiden win, but because it symbolized his emergence from the shadow of his older brother Michael and his ability to compete at the highest level on his own terms. It was a day of both emotional and professional significance, as Ralf Schumacher finally proved to the world, and to himself, that he was not just Michael's younger brother but a formidable driver in his own right. The win at San Marino was more than just a victory, it was a moment of validation for Ralf after years of comparisons, doubts, and questions about whether he could truly establish his own identity in Formula One. Driving for Williams, one of the most storied teams in F1 history, Ralf's performance that day was flawless. He led the race from start to finish, demonstrating his ability to manage pressure, execute race strategy, and drive with precision. This triumph was especially meaningful for Ralf because he had fought so hard to escape the overwhelming comparisons to Michael, who was already a multiple world champion by then. For one race weekend, Ralf stood entirely on his own, and the spotlight was his. Professionally, the San Marino victory elevated Ralf's status within the paddock. It signaled that he was a serious contender and capable of winning races on merit. This victory was followed by another career-defining moment just a few races later at the Canadian Grand Prix. In an extraordinary race, Ralf not only won but defeated Michael, finishing first while his brother came second. It was a symbolic moment for the Schumacher family and a significant personal achievement for Ralf. To beat Michael in a straight fight, on equal terms, was a profound statement. It showed that Ralf had the skill, focus, and mental toughness to compete with the very best, even with the added complexity of sibling rivalry. These victories were the high points of Ralf's career and represented his ability to rise to the occasion when presented with a competitive car. His time at Williams saw him achieve a total of 6 Grand Prix wins and several podium finishes, cementing his reputation as a solid, dependable driver capable of delivering strong performances. The 2003 season in particular, where he won 2 races and remained in championship contention for much of the year, highlighted his potential to be more than just a race winner, but a title contender, even if the ultimate championship challenge eluded him. For Ralf, the emotional significance of these victories was immense. Throughout his career, he had struggled with the constant comparisons to Michael, a man considered one of the greatest drivers of all time. Ralf never shied away from acknowledging Michael's brilliance, but he also wanted to be recognized for his own talents. His wins, particularly in 2001, were moments where he could feel a sense of personal accomplishment that wasn't tied to his brother's success. They represented the culmination of years of hard work, perseverance, and an ability to overcome both internal and external pressures. Once Ralf's racing days were over, he reflected on his career with a sense of realism and pride. He acknowledged that his career, while not as decorated as his brother's, was a success in its own right. Ralf was one of only a handful of drivers in Formula One history to have multiple Grand Prix wins, and he had raced for top teams like Williams and Toyota during one of the most competitive eras of the sport. He competed against legends such as Michael, Mika Häkkinen, Kimi Räikkönen, and Fernando Alonso, and on his best days, he proved he could beat them. Ralf was never one for exaggeration or inflated self-perception, and his post-racing reflections were grounded in a clear understanding of his place in the sport. He knew he had the talent to win, but was also honest about the challenges he faced, including the injuries, car issues, and pressure that sometimes kept him from reaching his full potential. Ultimately, Ralf took pride in having carved out his own path in Formula One, acknowledging the unique pressures he faced as Michael Schumacher's brother while remaining grateful for the experiences and success he achieved. Ralf Schumacher's legacy in Formula One is one of determination, talent, and resilience. While his career will always be contrasted with Michael's unprecedented success, Ralf's achievements stand on their own merit. With 6 Grand Prix victories, multiple podiums, and a competitive stint at Williams, Ralf's career is viewed as one of solid success. He wasn't a world champion, but he was a driver capable of winning races and delivering strong performances, particularly when given a competitive car. In contrast to Michael's dominant and often ruthless racing style, Ralf's approach was more calculated and methodical. He was known for his smooth driving and his ability to perform under pressure, particularly in wet conditions or when strategy played a key role. While he didn't have the aggressive flair of his brother, Ralf's calm, controlled style earned him respect within the paddock. His time at Toyota, while not as successful as his years at Williams, also showed his willingness to take on new challenges. Although Toyota's lofty ambitions in Formula One were never fully realized, Ralf remained committed and professional throughout his tenure with the team, even when results were hard to come by. Today, Ralf's legacy is appreciated for what it represents, the journey of a driver who fought to emerge from the shadow of a giant, who experienced the highs of race victories and the lows of crashes and injuries, and who navigated the pressures of family expectations with grace. He is remembered as a driver who, on his day, could beat anyone. After retiring from Formula One, Ralf Schumacher transitioned into other forms of racing, continuing his love for motorsport. He competed in the Deutsche Tourenwagen Masters, DTM, Germany's premier touring car championship, from 2008 to 2012. While his DTM career didn't reach the heights of his Formula One success, it allowed him to stay connected to racing and remain competitive in a different environment. In addition to racing, Ralf became involved in motorsport management and mentoring. He played a significant role in managing and guiding the career of his son, David Schumacher, who has followed in the family tradition by pursuing a career in motorsport. Ralf's involvement in David's development reflects his ongoing passion for the sport and his desire to support the next generation of racing talent. Ralf also took on roles within the broader motorsport industry, using his experience and knowledge to provide insights and commentary, particularly within the German motorsport media. His expertise, drawn from years of competing at the highest level, gave him a unique perspective, and he became a respected voice in discussions about Formula One. Though Ralf's story will always be linked to the Schumacher name, his post-racing life has shown that he is content with his own achievements. He has embraced his role as a mentor and guide for his son while continuing to support the sport that defined his life. Ralf's legacy may not be as towering as Michael's, but it is one of resilience, quiet determination, and a steady belief in his own abilities, qualities that allowed him to thrive in the most demanding sport in the world.